So if you look around the internet, everyone's got opinions. It's shocking. Everyone has an opinion about everything. Two people in the real estate world, or two people with huge opinions that are constantly everywhere, are Gary Vee and Grant Cardone. And I feel very differently about both of those two guys. But one thing they both get wrong is, should I own versus should I rent? Here's Gary Vee. He is a saver. He's an immigrant who moved here from a part of Russia, and he's a saver and a scrimper and someone who lived way below his means for years. And what he promotes around real estate is don't own, rent. Now, he's, like I said, a saver. He is someone who is a visionary when it comes to tech, and he kills it with tech. The dude can see the future, but he's dead wrong with real estate. Grant Cardone has a video with like 1.5 million views, and he tells people the wrong advice. He's literally telling people if you're gonna buy versus rent, and he talks about a $20 million house. Like, yeah, that really appeals to most of us. So I know 1,000 people that own at least 50 houses, and maybe 10 don't own. 10. The reason those 10 don't own is they live in super, super expensive parts of the country, like on the coast in Malibu, California, where they're renting a $20 million house and it's actually much cheaper to just rent it. But for almost everybody else, it makes sense to buy. So let's talk about what buying a house can mean and what it can do and why you should most likely buy. When I was 24 years old, I bought a single family lot. It cost me 60 grand, which back then was a fortune, for me at least. I built a single family house on it, and back then interest rates were super high. Like the first was like 8.5 and the second was like 12.5. And it cost so much money to live in this $300,000 house that I couldn't afford it, which is stupid, right? But what I did is I owned the house and I rented all the rooms. I literally rented out every single room in the house. This was in 2000. Around September 11th, 2001, about 18 months later, the world was on its head and the Fed lowered interest rates. What I did is I refinanced my entire house and I could then afford it, and it was actually kind of cheap. The other thing that happened is there was appreciation. So for the first time in my life, I actually had money because I pulled $50,000 out of my house. I put it in the bank. I didn't spend it. I put it in the bank, and then I lowered my interest rate because the interest rates came down. I actually was saving money, a significant amount of money every month, and I had, for the first time in my life, a savings account. What ownership of a home does is it gives you chances that renting does not. If there's inflation, rents go up. Your mortgage payment doesn't. The longer you live in a house, what typically happens is you can pay down principal and you actually own more of that home. Now, to be completely honest, if you look at a mortgage statement, 93% of what you pay from year 0 to year 7 goes towards interest. The banks have it front end loaded, so you're paying more towards interest than you are towards principal. There's 1,000 ways that you can solve that problem and actually chip that away. But it's true. If you make any improvements to a rental, they go to your landlord, not to you. There are so many reasons that ownership is better. The government incentivizes ownership. Nowadays, you can actually own for almost no money down. There's hundreds of programs out there for like literally 0 to 3% you can own a home, which is kind of comparable to a security deposit with a rental. In addition, interest and taxes for the last 50 years have both mostly been depreciable or are write-offs or something that counts in your favor with taxes. Now, these things change. You have to double check and make sure whenever you're watching this video it actually is true. But interest and tax are typically something that incentivize you to own. So let me tell you what this means in English. Let's say you have $1,000 rent. Well, your rent's $1,000. But if you have a $1,000 mortgage and you're paying money towards interest and you're paying money towards taxes, which you're going to, those things actually don't count for you. They can be written off. And if you do this, what happens is your net effective rate of tax actually comes down. So this gets complicated, but if you go into work and you change your W-4, if you get a W-2, a W-4 is the form that generates the W-2. You change your dependents based upon owning a home, and you get more money every month in your paycheck. When it's time to settle up at the end of the year with the IRS, you're actually still even because you're paying interest and taxes. With those two things, what happens is that $1,000 mortgage, you might actually get another $150 in your paycheck over the course of the month. So it doesn't feel like $1,000, it feels like $850. So it actually feels like less money. For people who own thousands and thousands of doors, they're not us. I own hundreds of doors and I'm not them. What I'm telling you is the first way to get in is with ownership of a home. It changes the frame. It takes you from being outside to inside, from watching the carousel to being on it. When there's inflation and things in the world happen, when you own a home, you can participate in the upside. I have never, ever, ever heard anybody once say, I just found $50,000 under my rental. But with a single family home that you own, it happens all the time. As I'm filming this video, there's just short of $2 trillion in home equity. That means all the houses in America that people own, there's $2 trillion in equity in those homes. That's why you constantly hear about people doing cash out refis or putting home equity lines of credit on their house so they can get money out. Now let's just say, Frank, I don't want to just own a home. I want to own a bunch. Cool. Hey Frank, I don't have any money and I want to own a home. Or hey Frank, I do have money and I want to own a home. All these are fine scenarios. Let me tell you what you should do in a couple of different places. Let's talk about this a little bit. If you're going to own a home, I believe, it's my opinion, that you don't go out and buy the most expensive house you can possibly find. What I'm a firm believer in is finding value add opportunities. So let's just say you're in your high 20s, your low 30s, you're on a wholesale list somewhere in your town, and somebody puts a house on the market for you, or in that market for wholesale, and it's in a neighborhood that you'd want to live. Here's how you could do this with absolutely no money down. You buy that house with hard money from someone in town, which is easy to find. You renovate the home, and before you move into the home, you go to a mortgage broker and you have them do either a cash out refi or just a conversion from the current loan to a permanent loan so you can move into it. In almost every instance, there's going to be equity in that home. This is a way that you could do a renovation for yourself and move into a house that's affordable, and there's money stocked away in that house to start. That's just one strategy. Another strategy that is very common is you find a duplex or a triplex, depending on where you live in the world, and you move into one of the units, kind of like I did with my first house, and then you fix up and rent the other units. Invariably what happens is over time those rents go up for those people living next door to you, and they pay your mortgage, and your mortgage continues to go down till it's either next to or nothing. These are small strategies. So let's just say you get into a house, or you're already in a house and you live in a primary residence. What most people start to do who really want to own real estate is after they move into their primary residence a year or two later, you start to look for a rental property. If you don't blow your money on cars and trips and watches and clothes and all kinds of other things, if you're prudent, you can then take your money and buy something else. If you are a W-2 employee, you have an advantage over me. I am a business owner. I am not paid on a W-2 like you are. And because of that, I can't get the same mortgages you can. All of my mortgages are commercial mortgages, which mean they reset. Everyone who I know that does this and does this well, buying houses, buying real estate, and does it well, what they do is they use what's called the golden tickets. If you get a W-2, it means you have a full-time job, you can get up to 10. Now this number changes. As I'm filming this, it's 10 Freddie or Fannie-backed mortgages. These are 30-year conventional mortgages. There's no resets, there's no ARMs, there's no interest-only periods. These are the best products out there. And right now they're sub 3.5% interest rates. So if you have a W-2 and you buy a house, and then 12 to 18 months later, you buy an investment home, and you start doing that, you buy 1 or 2 a year, which is attainable if you're focused, and you get these incredible rates, 3.5% interest or less on a 30-year note, you are going to be stockpiling money in your pocket every month. Plus, you're going to start adding depreciation. Now, you can't depreciate a primary residence, but you can with rentals. So, if you own one, it gets you in the game. It gives you an ability to buy 2 and 3 and 4. The golden tickets are conventional mortgages. Now, if you're married and your partner has a W-2, your partner can also get 10 mortgages the same exact way. So if you have a primary residence and you're married, you can have 19 more houses with these incredible interest rates. So let's just say you live in this home for a period of time and the value goes up and you decide to sell it. If you are single, the IRS allows you up to $250,000 in tax-free gain. If you're married, the number doubles. It goes up to $500,000. So in section 121, if you ever talk to anybody in tax, they talk about sections and codes and all this other stuff that makes my eyes roll in the back of my head. But check with someone who understands tax. But if you live in a primary residence, and there's rules, you must live there for at least 2 years, have some consecutive period of time. If you've moved out, there's a lot of rules. But if you follow the rules, you buy a house, add value to that home, you live in it. You live in it for at least 2 years, and then you sell it. Anything you make up to 250 grand is tax-free. That is incredible. That is something the gurus do not talk about. And it's one of the reasons that you should absolutely own. You get benefit in paying tax, you get benefit in paying interest, and you get a tax-free event if you sell it. The cool thing, you can do this over and over and over. In my 20s, this is one of the things that I did in order to make money. I started off with next to nothing. I built a house, I sold it, I built another house, I sold it, I built another house, I sold it, and boom, just like that, I was a millionaire. By doing these things over and over again, and you can too. If you want to own hundreds of thousands of doors, awesome. I recommend starting with one that you own, you live in, because it changes the game. You get from outside to inside by doing it. And that's why those guys are wrong and you should own. Hey guys, it's Frank, what's up? If you like these videos, if you would subscribe, like, and share, that really helps us out. I don't know how the algorithms work, but they tell me it helps. So if you could do that, I'd appreciate it. Also, don't be afraid to check us out at frankcava.com, where we give away incredible amounts of good stuff for free. Did you hear me? F-R-E-E. F-R-E-E. Free. Go there and go away. Bye.